Hey guys, this is Dave from Terrest Studios, and today I wanted to show you how to make one of these little spiral mobiles. I sell these in my Etsy shop, and they're a nice simple little mobile and a very good way to learn how to make mobiles. And you can make it with any kind of wire you have around. This one is made with steel wire, but you could even use a coat hanger if you have a metal coat hanger, or any kind of wire you have, and just follow along. We're gonna make one of these from scratch. Okay guys, so the first thing we have to do is get our wire. Now I'm going to be using this steel wire. This is 16 gauge tie wire, and you can get this at any Home Depot or Lowe's or most hardware stores. It's steel wire. It's what I make my baskets out of. But you could use any wire. If you have some craft wire, some decorative wire, you could even do this with coat hanger. And you know, as long as it's just the metal kind, without coating on it, like one that looks like copper. And the other thing is, you know, you can hammer these spirals flat on an anvil if you wanted to. I've done that too. But we're going to just go ahead and start with a simple mobile. And there's two ways to pull this wire. Now, I usually put it in a vise to kind of straighten it, because as you can see, you know, it's going to have all these coils. All this is not going to be nice and straight. So I usually take a rag. I usually put it in the vise, but today I'm going to show you, if you don't have a vise, how you can do this. Because we're working with, we're going to be working with some fairly short lengths. We don't need, you know, tremendously long pieces. And I hope you guys can see this okay, because I can't really too well see what I'm doing here. But basically, you know, you want to take your wire and just kind of pull it through your fingers. And you do it with curved in one direction, and then you do it curved in the opposite direction. And you might have to do that 2 or 3 times, and it's not going to be straight. It's going to have a gentle curve, but it'll be much smoother than it was. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm actually going to put this in the vise. I have a vise down here, and I put one end in the vise, and then I pulled the whole coil down the whole length of the table, and I do the similar thing. So I'll have a piece that's about you know, about 7.5, 8 feet long, and then we'll cut our pieces that we need from there. Okay guys, so I've got this this wire all pulled out here. It's right along my table here is a tape measure, and so I'm going to cut 4 pieces of wire, 5 pieces of wire. What we need is the arms of the mobile, and then we need a piece to make all the jump loops. So I'm not sure exactly about the lengths, but I think the first one's about 21. So I'm going to do 1 at 21, and we'll do 3 about 16. So I've got, I don't know if you guys can see this. Now you can cut with your pliers if that's all you've got. But if you've got a pair of these, that's the best tool for the job. But if all you have is a pair of you're going to need some kind of needle nose pliers for this. And you see they have a little cutter there on the edge here, so you can use that too, and it works fine. It's just that the other cutters work better. So we got 3 at 16 and 1 at 21, and we'll do another one that's just a random length. I just cut about 1 foot, but we're going to make some jump loops. And actually, let's I'm going to bring these over to my other table where it's a little cleaner. Okay everybody, so we have our pieces cut here, the 21 inch and 3/16, and one that's I don't know, about 1 foot long. This is going to be for making our loops. And I'm going to bring the camera in close so I can show you guys a good close-up of how I'm going to do all this, how we're going to make these, and we'll get started. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is make our loops. And we don't have to be perfect about these. In fact, we want to leave them open. Now you can cut these with these pliers if you need to. I'm going to do one that way. And so basically that's what you want. And we're going to do 4 of those. I like to have these ready because it makes it easier once you're ready to build. Now I'm going to use these cutters because they're much better. And just hold your hand on the piece before you cut it because it will fly if you don't. I hope the camera angle's okay for you guys. I'm going to check in a minute. So try to keep all your loops around the same size. In this case I'm making them, they're probably about 3/8 of an inch. And the loops are going to allow the mobile, each section of the mobile to spin freely. So now we've got this one. This is going to be our bottom arm. That's why it's longer than all the rest, because it's going to have a spiral on each end, as you guys have seen. So we want to start at the end there. And this part we want to make a nice, very tight curl, you know, as tight as you can get it. And then with your pliers, get it started until you got about 2 rows. Once you got about 2 rows like that, then you can pinch it in between your index finger and your thumb and just kind of roll it. And you want to do that until you have the spiral the size that you want it, which in our case is going to be about 1.25 inches. Now I've made many of these before, and that's how I know. And these I sell these in my Etsy shop on occasion, and I have other mobiles there, like you guys have probably seen. My shop has a lot of mobiles. And some of them are made in this fashion, and some of them are made differently. If you guys want to see more about making mobiles or different types of mobiles, leave a comment in the comment section below. So we've got one side there, and that's about the size we're going for. And we'll see now if it looks like I might have been off on the amount of wire that I needed. This was 21. I couldn't remember. So we could either make our spirals a little smaller, or we could just cut a new piece of wire. Let's stick with our 21. See where this gets us. Both spirals don't have to be the exact same size either. So we're just going to do the same thing on this end. And get that 2 rows, about 2 rows of coil there. And then, from there you're pretty well, if your fingers aren't that strong, you can do another row with the pliers, and then it should get pretty easy to do by hand. And then just keep on rolling that in. Now, like I said, you could hammer these if you wanted to make it nice hammered effect, and have these all flattened out by hammering them on an anvil. Now, so we're going to have one that's a little bit bigger than the other. So you could go a little longer if you wanted something a little bit bigger, but we're just going to go with this. I'm going to back that off a little bit. I want to tell you guys what this measurement is here. I'm just going by eye and experience. When we put our hanging loop in, we can give this any kind of, if we want this end up a little bit, or we want that them both to be exactly level, is going to depend on where we put our balance point. So this is how we do the balance point with this type of mobile. I just balance it on my finger. Now in my case, I like to have one side up a little bit from the other. So I'm gonna go back a little bit, so we have that little bit, the smaller part raised up a little bit more than the big part. And when we got our balance point where we want it, we're going to go about 1/4 of an inch in front of that. And we're going to make this loop. And bring it all the way around. When you've got it all the way around like that, I want you to take your pliers and stick them right in that loop. And then just squeeze. And then you can give a little push down on each side to keep that nice curve that you want to have that curve there. Something like that. And you can play with this, so you can see that that's where your balance point is. And so if you want your circles a little tighter in, you can roll them in more. As long as you roll in the same from each side, your balance point won't change. If you want to change your balance point, you could roll one side in more than the other. So this is a good mobile to start with because it teaches you how to compensate, how to balance from the center point and what to do if things are wrong. And so I want to just put this first jump ring in. And the reason for this jump ring is because if we didn't put it, then our next arm would come out this way. And it would have limited mobility and it wouldn't be in alignment, which is okay. Some mobiles might be made that way. I make some mobiles that are that way, that don't have a jump ring in between the connections. In fact, there's one up here that you'll see at the end and in the beginning of the video with the blue and white pieces, and that one's made in a different fashion. But this one, we want to have the arms to, so that when it's in its resting position, they'll come back into alignment. In a line with each other, all in the same plane. So that's our first arm. And now we're going to start the second one the same way. We've got our 16-inch pieces here, and we're going to just start the coil the same way. And we want to get that nice tight curl. And we're going to try to get a couple of rounds. Hope you guys can see this good before we start by hand. And then we can crank this by hand and just get that coil nice and tight. And what I'll do is I'll show you guys one of these that I did hammered, and then I'll show you this one, of course, which I won't hammer, and see what you like. So this one you're just going to coil until it's the size you want it. And I'm going to say a little bit more. So I think that's good. So what we want to do now is this one is going to come off this side, because that's the way I've designed it. So we won't need all this wire. When we make this loop, that takes up almost about an inch of wire. So we've got to kind of keep that in mind, that wherever we put this, it's going to be in an inch more. Actually, it's going to take about a ½ inch for this hook over here and an inch for the loop. So we want to be about 1.5 inches past where we want to be. So we're going to be if we want it to be in here somewhere, we're going to have to make it about here. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this one here. And you could always leave it a little longer than you think you're going to need, and we can adjust it later. And we're going to put this little hook on first. And we'll leave it open. We're not going to close anything up yet because we're still deciding. And then this one's going to go onto this. I'll hook that onto there. And then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to have to find our balance point along here. So we're going to hold this up. I'm going to give this a little bit more curve in it and bend that a little bit. And then we're going to give, that's about the angle I want. Of course, I want this to be in more, but once we make our loop, we're going to be in closer. So I think I want it about there. So I'm going to start my loop about 1/4 inch in front of my finger. And if you make the loop in the wrong place, you know, it's not the end of the world. You can just always make another piece, or you might be able to finagle it somehow by uncoiling this or by coiling it more. And so then after you get the loop made, you do the same thing. You just kind of straighten that up. Make sure you have your thing is not crooked. You know, from the loop to here is straight. If this is bent out, you know, bend it back, and then check and see if you like that. Now, if this is up too high, which I think it is for this one, we can uncoil this a little bit and it'll go lower. Of course, it'll also go longer. So it depends on how you want it to look, but I want it a little bit more in close. So we're gonna I'm gonna close this loop up a little bit so we can see exactly where it really is. Actually, it's not too bad right there. So if we want this to go up higher, we can cut a little more off of here. I think I'm going to coil it in a little bit more. And just make sure I got this adjusted there. Make sure you still have a nice curve everywhere. I think I said that wrong. So if you want this part to go down, then this coil has to go out farther, or this end has to get shorter. I think if this end gets shorter, it's going to bring that end down. So I want it down a little bit, so I'm going to take a little nip off of this end and cut just a little bit of this curl off. Curl just a little bit more under, and we'll see how that does. So I think that looks pretty good. I don't know if I can show you guys that. But I'm going to put my next jump ring in. And we just turn it till it comes on there all the way. And then we'll squeeze this, and then squeeze this way. Just go around until you've got it nice and tight. It's closed, and the shape looks okay. And then we've got to close this loop right here. And then we'll check again. Now this is up a little higher than I wanted it. So I'm going to bring this out longer. And that looks pretty good. So it all depends on how you want it to look. Right now we've got that about like that. Okay guys, I think my camera's been giving me trouble, so I hope I caught everything, but I've got this the first two arms on this, and this was the arm I made that I wasn't crazy about. I don't know if that part's in the video because I think my camera is going to sleep on me, and I have to make sure it's off of sleep mode. So this one, the one that we didn't use on the second arm, I put it aside and said, well, maybe we could use it over here. And it looks like it's up way too high from where I want it. So I can take some more off of this side. So what I'll do is cut a little bit more of this curl off. Shortening this side should make, and it did. And so now I almost want it up a little bit, and so I can do that by shortening this side. So you can see I want it, right in here a little bit. So I think I'm just going to curl this in just a tiny bit, and then I think it will be pretty good. And then we just have one more arm. So I can't see how that looks for you guys, but I'm going to, hopefully that you could see that. And let me see if I like that. I think that's pretty good. And now I'll go ahead and make my last arm. And you can always adjust this a little bit at the end, but you can't do a lot of adjusting once you've got the balance points in. So just like the other two, we'll start with a nice tight circle. A couple of rounds with the pliers. Once we get our 2 rounds with the pliers, then we can go ahead and just roll that in. It's chilly out here in the studio, and I don't want to put the heat on because it's forced hot air, and it will ruin the sound on the video for you guys. You won't be able to hear anything I'm saying with the blowers going. So I'm going to stay cold for you guys. So it depends what size you want, and I think I'm going to back off a little bit. I don't want it bigger than the one over there. I think that's about good. And so we're going to want to be, I think with this one, I'm going to want to be somewhere over in here. So if we want 1 inch for the loop and about a 1/2 inch for the thing, we're going to be about in here somewhere. Always go a little longer than you think you're going to need. And we'll put a hook on this one. And we'll just pick this up, and we'll. So again, you've got to do the balance thing. So that's about right. So this may be a little longer than I want it, but I'm going to go ahead and put that balance loop in and see what we got. So we want to be balanced about there. So I'm going to go about 1/4 inch beyond my finger, beyond the balance point, and make that loop. So that loop is getting close to the beginning, but that's okay. So we've got that loop like that. Now I'm going to go right in there and squeeze that like that. Now I've got a bit of a twist going on. So again, like I always tell you guys, with each arm you want to make sure that this stays straight. Your hook, your loop, and your end. If anything starts to get crooked, it's going to make it not line up nice and straight when it's. I always feel that when the mobile is, this type of mobile anyway, when it's in its resting position, it should come into alignment like that when it's resting. So Now I'm just going to test this with this last hanging loop that we have and see if I do like that position where it is. So I'm going to take a look at it and then I'm going to show you guys where it is. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. So this is the way, that would be the resting position for this mobile, right about there. And I think that looks okay to me. I like it. So I'm going to go ahead and cinch this up. And then you could take one of your little pieces of scrap wire and this could be just a little hook piece, just so you can hold this up and see how this looks. Now if you want this to really have, to be able to move, I put a little swivel right here. So I'm gonna, I'll go grab a swivel and then I'll come back and we'll take a look at this one. And I'm going to show you the other one that I did that's with the hammered flat spirals. And we'll do a little bit, maybe a little bit of adjustment here. But I think it looks pretty good, and you could do this with any color wire or any gauge wire. And it's a good way to learn and get the skills of mobile making, because these kind of balance points and things are common to many different ways of making mobiles. And like I said, if you guys want to see more on making different kinds of mobiles, let me know, and I'll see what I could do. Okay guys, so this is the one. I'm going to hold these up for you, but I just wanted to give you a quick look. This is one that I did with hammered coils, and I hammered them and then I sanded them off to distress them a little bit, and then I made this kind of a frame that goes around, and this is all been clear coated. I sprayed it with clear coat because the steel wire will rust if it gets wet, especially if you like I did here, where I sanded it off with a piece of sandpaper to make it more shiny. And you could see that I did like a little mobile like we did, and then I added a bridge to another little piece over here. So there's all kinds of stuff you can do. And then with the one that we just made, I put this, you could put a swivel there, but I had this fishing leader that has a swivel up here, and you could put a little hook so that you could hang it. But I'll hold these up for you guys and show you how they look when they're moving a little bit. Okay guys, so here is the one we did today. And I'll show you a closer up of that. And here's one that I did and put in a little frame, made it a little differently. So you can see you can kind of vary the the pattern and what you put in there, and how you could connect 2 or 3 of these together, or you could do like this one where you have a little bridge to another one, and this one I put kind of a little frame around. You could also make a little stand so it it stands, and it has a stand that holds it up. So all kinds of stuff you can do. But that's the two ideas for this this simple wire mobile. So I hope you guys like that. Please like, share, and subscribe if you want to, and check out the links below for my Etsy shop and my eBay and my Facebook group and all that stuff if you want to find out more, and it helps support the channel, so I appreciate it. Thanks everybody. I'll see you next time.